No one is loyal forever. In the cold stone corridors of King's Landing, where whispers cut sharper than daggers, loyalty is a silver coin, valuable today, worthless tomorrow. Ask Ned Stark, who placed honor above all, only to see his head impaled on a spike. Ask Robb, the king in the north, who trusted in oaths and drowned in blood at the Red Wedding. Ask Jon Snow, who lived for his brothers of the Night's Watch, only to be pierced by the knives of those he called kin. Loyalty is a promise written in sand, and in Westeros, the tides always come to wash it away. This is not a tale of betrayal, though betrayal is its shadow. Betrayal is merely the symptom, not the disease. The disease is human nature, a creature torn between greed, fear, and dreams so fierce they burn the world to ash. Look upon King's Landing, the beating heart of the Seven Kingdoms, a city built not on stone, but on bones and cinders. The Iron Throne seat of kings is no symbol of power. It is a warning. Sit upon it and you will bleed. Rule it and you will burn. Yet men, women, lords, and bastards will never cease reaching for it. Knowing the cost is everything. Let us begin with this brutal truth. Power is the only god in Westeros, and it demands blood. The Game of Thrones is no game at all. It is a crucible forging and breaking all who dare to play. To understand this world, we must walk its shadowed paths, trace the scars of its heroes and villains, and listen to the echoes of their downfall. For in their stories, Ned's honor, Cersei's love, Jon's burden, Daenerys' fire, we see not just the rise and fall of kings, but the fragile, fatal pulse of humanity itself. Begin with Ned Stark, Lord of Winterfell, a man whose honor was both his light and his noose. Ned was no fool. He knew King's Landing was a viper's nest, where truth was twisted and kindness was weakness. Yet he believed honor could stand against deceit, that integrity could outlast treachery. He was wrong. When he rode south to serve as Hand of the King, he carried the weight of the North on his shoulders, a land where oaths were iron and trust was stone. But the South is not the North. In the Red Keep, words are weapons, and Ned's refusal to wield them was his undoing. He uncovered the truth of Cersei's children, the incestuous secret that threatened the realm, and in his mercy, he offered her a chance to flee. Mercy. In the Game of Thrones, mercy is a blade turned inward. Cersei did not hesitate. She struck, and Ned's head rolled. His death was not the result of naivety, but of a deeper flaw. He refused to become the darkness. And in Westeros, the darkness always wins. But what is this darkness? It is not merely lies or betrayal. It is the hunger that gnaws at the soul, the need to hold something, anything, against the chaos of the world. For some, it is power. For others, it is love. And love, in Westeros, is no gentle thing. It is a fire that consumes, a blade that cuts both ways. Consider Cersei Lannister, Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, a woman whose love was both her crown and her curse. To the world, Cersei was a schemer, a manipulator, a lioness with claws of gold. But look closer. Every lie she told, every life she took, was for her children. Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen. They were her blood, her breath, her reason to rise each morning. When she walked through the ashes of the great sept of Baelor, when she unleashed the green fire of wildfire to burn her enemies to dust, she did not smile for victory. She smiled because she believed no one could touch what she held dear. Yet love in its ferocity blinds. Cersei could not see that her actions, her ruthless ambition, wove the noose that would choke her children. Joffrey died, choking on poison. Myrcella fell in her father's arms. Tommen leapt from a tower window. Cersei's love built a castle on sand, and the waves came for it all. Love and honor, then, are not saviors. They are shackles binding men and women to paths that lead to ruin. But what of duty? What of the weight of a crown, not sought, but thrust upon you? Enter Jon Snow, the bastard of Winterfell, the man who carried the world's burdens and asked for nothing in return. Jon never craved power. He did not dream of thrones or glory. Yet fate, that cruel weaver, made him a leader time and again, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch King in the north, the shield that guarded the realms of men. Jon's life was a litany of sacrifices. He swore his life to the wall, forsaking love and family. He faced the White Walkers, the cold death beyond the north, not for fame, but because he believed the world was worth saving. But duty is a harsh master. It demands everything and gives nothing back. When Jon stood before Daenerys Targaryen, the woman he loved, and saw the fire in her eyes, he faced a truth sharper than any sword to save the world. You must sometimes kill what you hold most dear. His dagger plunged into Daenerys' heart was not betrayal. It was the price of duty, and that price broke him. Daenerys, the mother of dragons, is the flame that ties these threads together. Born in exile, sold as a bride, forged in fire. She rose from nothing to become everything. She was not just a queen, but a vision, a dream of a world, remade, of chains broken and justice reborn. From the slaver cities of Essos to the shores of Westeros, she carried her dragons and her ideals, believing fire could purify the corrupt. But fire does not discriminate. When Daenerys looked upon King's Landing, the city that stood between her and her birthright, she saw not a people, but a symbol of all that had been taken from her. Her dragons roared, and the city burned. Thousands died, not because she was evil, but because she believed only destruction could birth renewal. Daenerys' story is not one of madness, but of conviction, pushed to its breaking point. She teaches us that even the noblest dreams, when fed with blood, become nightmares. King's Landing stands as the monument to these truths. It is a city of ash, built on the bones of dreamers and schemers alike. Its walls have heard the laughter of tyrants, the screams of the innocent, the whispers of those who thought they could outwit fate. The Iron Throne forged from the swords of vanquished kings is no prize. It is a trap to claim. It is to invite ruin. Yet the game goes on because humanity cannot resist the call of power, the lure of legacy, the hope that this time it will be different, but it never is. The wheel turns, as Daenerys once said, crushing those above and below alike. Ned's honor, Cersei's love, Jon's duty, Daenerys' fire, they are not answers but questions. What drives us to destroy ourselves? What makes us reach for a throne that cuts? The answer lies not in the throne, but in the mirror. We are the architects of our own ruin, building crowns from blood and ashes, knowing they will crumble, yet unable to stop. This is the first truth of Westeros. Nothing endures. Not loyalty, not love, not honor, not power. All that remains is the story, the tale of those who fought, who fell, who burned brightly before the darkness came. And in that story, we see ourselves reflected in the cold, unyielding steel of the Iron Throne. The air in King's Landing reeks of ambition, a scent sharper than wildfire, and twice as deadly. It clings to the silks of lords, the armor of knights, the rags of small folk, a perfume that promises glory and delivers graves. Ambition is the second truth of Westeros, a fire that burns in every heart, from the highest tower to the lowest gutter. It is not mere greed, though greed is its cousin. It is the belief that you and you alone can bend the world to your will. It is the whisper that says, "Why not me?" And in that question lies the seed of ruin. Walk the streets of this city, past the Red Keep's looming shadow, and you will see ambition in every face. The merchant who dreams of a lord's title, the squire who imagines a knight's spurs, the beggar who clutches a stolen coin as if it were a crown. They all play the game, though they may not know its name. The Iron Throne is the prize for the boldest, but ambition does not discriminate. It lures the mighty and the meek alike, and it feasts on them all. To understand this, we must look to those who climbed highest, who reached for the stars and fell into the abyss. Petyr Baelish Tyrion, Lannister Stannis Baratheon, and the shadow of the Mad King himself. Begin with Petyr Baelish, called Littlefinger, a man who wove ambition into an art form. Born to a minor house with no great name or wealth, he was a speck of dust in the eyes of Westeros's giants. Yet Petyr saw what others did not, that power is not inherited but crafted. Where lords wielded swords, he wielded words. Where kings built armies, he built webs. From the brothels of the Vale to the council chambers of King's Landing, Littlefinger climbed step by cunning step, turning chaos into opportunity. He orchestrated the death of Jon Arryn, sparked the War of the Five Kings, betrayed Ned Stark, and handed Sansa Stark to monsters, all for the dream of a throne that would bear his name. Petyr's genius was his ability to see the world as a chessboard where every piece could be moved, sacrificed, or claimed. But genius is a fragile thing. His ambition blinded him to the one truth he could not manipulate: the past. Sansa, the pawn he thought broken, became his judge. In the cold hall of Winterfell, his throat was slit, his empire of schemes reduced to a puddle of blood. Littlefinger teaches us that ambition unchecked is a ladder with no top climb too high, and the fall is inevitable. But ambition is not always so calculated. For some, it is a fire stoked by duty, by the belief that the world must bend to a higher purpose. Stannis Baratheon, the Iron Stag, was such a man. Stannis did not crave the Iron Throne for its glory. He claimed it because it was his by right, because the laws of succession demanded it, because he believed himself the chosen of a fiery god. Stannis was no dreamer. No, he was a soldier, a strategist, a man of iron will who bent his life to the service of justice. Yet justice is a harsh mistress, and ambition, even cloaked in righteousness, is a flame that consumes. Stannis marched through storm and snow, sacrificing allies, kin, and finally, his own daughter, Shireen, to the flames of Ar-Halor. He believed the fire would grant him victory, that the gods would reward his resolve. They did not. His army shattered, his wife, broken, his cause, lost. Stannis fell to Brienne of Tarth's sword, a king without a crown. His ambition was not for himself, but for a world he thought he could save. Yet the lesson is the same: ambition, no matter how noble, demands a price, and the gods do not haggle. If Stannis burned for duty, Tyrion Lannister burned for survival. The imp, the dwarf, the half-man. Tyrion was born into a world that despised him, a Lannister in name, but never in favor. His ambition was not for thrones or titles, but for a place at the table, a chance to prove his worth. Tyrion's weapon was his mind, sharper than Valyrian steel, and with it, he carved a path through a world that sought to crush him. As Hand of the King, he outwitted enemies, saved King's Landing from Stannis' siege, and held the realm together, while others tore it apart. But ambition, even for survival, is a dangerous dance. Tyrion's loyalty to his family, to the sister who loathed him, and the father who despised him, was his chain. When he killed Tywin Lannister, his own father, on a privy with a crossbow, it was not just vengeance. It was liberation, an act of ambition that said, "I will not be your shadow." Yet freedom came at a cost. Tyrion's path led him to Daenerys, to a new cause, a new dream of a better world. But even there, his ambition faltered. His belief in Daenerys' vision blinded him to her descent. And when King's Landing burned, his hands were stained with its ash. Tyrion teaches us that ambition, even for survival, is a gamble, and the house always wins. Behind these men looms the shadow of Daenerys Targaryen, the Mad King, whose ambition was a wildfire that nearly consumed the realm. Aerys was not born mad. He was a dreamer once, a king who imagined a legacy to rival Aegon the Conqueror. But ambition, when fed by paranoia, becomes a beast. Aerys saw enemies in every shadow, traitors in every smile. His dream of greatness twisted into a pyre of green flame, caches of wildfire hidden beneath King's Landing, ready to burn the city to ash. His ambition was not for power, but for eternity, to be a god whose name would never fade. Yet gods do not sit on thrones of men. Aerys's madness drove his allies away, turned his son against him, and brought Jaime Lannister's blade to his throat. The Mad King's legacy is not one of glory, but of warning ambition, when untamed, devours its master. King's Landing is the crucible where these ambitions were forged and broken. Its streets are paved with the dreams of those who thought they could outrun fate. The Red Keep, with its towering walls and shadowed halls, is a monument to the futility of it all. Every lord who schemed, every king who fought, every dreamer who burned, they all left their mark, not in stone, but in blood. The Iron Throne, forged from 1,000 swords, is not a seat, but a mirror. It reflects the truth of those who seek it, that ambition is a flame beautiful and deadly, and it spares no one. What drives this hunger? Why do men and women, knowing the cost, still reach for the crown? It is not just power, not just glory. It is the hope that they can be more than what they are, that they can leave a mark on a world that forgets so easily. Peter Baelish dreamed of a name that would echo through history. Stannis Baratheon dreamed of a world made just. Tyrion Lannister dreamed of a life unbowed. Daenerys Targaryen dreamed of eternity. They all failed, not because they lacked strength, but because ambition is a lie. It promises everything and delivers nothing but ash. This is the second truth of Westeros. Ambition is a fire that burns the hand that feeds it. The Game of Thrones is played by all, but won by none. The Iron Throne waits cold and unyielding for the next dreamer, the next schemer, the next fool. And the wheel turns, crushing all in its path, as it always has, as it always will. Vengeance is the third truth of Westeros, a blade that cuts both wielder and foe. In the shadow of the Red Keep, where the ghosts of the fallen linger like mist, vengeance is not justice. It is a hunger, a fever, a song that drowns out reason. It promises healing, but delivers only scars. King's Landing, with its spires piercing the sky, is a city built on grudges, its foundations laid by the hands of those who swore to right wrongs, to balance scales, to make the guilty pay. Yet the scales never balance. The guilty die, but so do the innocent, and the cycle spins on a wheel of blood that grinds all to dust. To understand this truth, we must walk the paths of those consumed by vengeance. Arya Stark, Jaime Lannister, Olenna Tyrell, and the shadow of Robert's rebellion itself. For in their stories, we see the cost of a heart set on retribution. Begin with Arya Stark, the girl who became no one, yet never forgot her name. Arya was not born for vengeance. She was a child of Winterfell, wild and free, dreaming of swords and laughter. But King's Landing took her father, her mother, her brother, her home. It carved her childhood into a litany of names. A prayer, she whispered in the dark. Joffrey, Cersei, Elyn Payne, the Hound. Each name was a wound, each death a step toward closure she would never find. Arya's path was not one of glory, but of shadows. She trained with the faceless men, learned to wear faces to kill without remorse, to become a weapon forged in grief. When she returned to Westeros, her list grew shorter, but not sweeter. She fed Walder Frey his sons baked into a pie, and watched him choke on his own blood. She slipped into the Red Keep, a ghost in the night, and crossed names from her list with a blade's precision. Yet vengeance is a hollow feast. Arya killed, but the ghosts remained. Her father did not rise, her mother did not smile, her brother did not return. She sailed west, seeking something beyond the blood. But the lesson lingers. Vengeance does not heal. It only empties. If Arya's vengeance was cold and precise, Jaime Lannister's was a storm born of love and betrayal, the Kingslayer. They called him a name spat with scorn, yet few understood the fire that drove his blade into Daenerys Targaryen's back. Jaime was no mere knight, no simple oath-breaker. He was a man who loved fiercely. Cersei, his sister, his twin, his other half. When Aerys's madness threatened the realm, when wildfire waited to consume King's Landing, Jaime acted not for honor, but for her. He broke his vow, stained his cloak, and bore the world's hatred to save the city and the woman he loved. Yet vengeance followed him like a shadow. Robert's rebellion, sparked by Aerys's crimes, made Jaime a pariah, a man whose truth no one would hear. Years later, when he returned to King's Landing, broken and changed, he sought redemption, not retribution. But vengeance is a tide that pulls all into its depths. Jaime's love for Cersei, his refusal to abandon her even as she descended into her own madness, led him back to the city as it burned. He died in her arms, crushed by the weight of the Red Keep, a victim of the same fire he once sought to extinguish. Jaime teaches us that vengeance, even when righteous, is a chain that binds you to the past, dragging you to ruin. Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns, wove vengeance into a tapestry of wit and poison. She was no warrior, no knight, but a grandmother whose sharp tongue and sharper mind cut through the Game of Thrones like a scythe. When Joffrey the Monster King threatened her granddaughter Margaery, Olenna struck with a precision that made swords seem clumsy. At the Purple Wedding, she slipped poison into Joffrey's cup, watching him choke as the court wailed. It was not just for Margaery, but for the Tyrell name, for the future she had cultivated with every alliance, every smile. Yet vengeance is a flame that spreads, Joffrey's death unleashed. Cersei's wrath, and the Tyrells paid dearly. Margaery burned in the Great Sept, Loras broken, the Tyrell line extinguished. Olenna's final act, confessing her crime to Jaime, as she drank poisoned wine, was not triumph, but defiance. She died knowing she had struck a blow, but also knowing it changed nothing. The Tyrells were gone, their gardens withered. Olenna's vengeance was a rose with thorns that pierced her own heart, a reminder that retribution, no matter how sweet, sows only ashes. Behind these personal vendettas looms the shadow of Robert's rebellion, the great vengeance that reshaped Westeros. It began with love and loss. Lyanna Stark stolen by Rhaegar Targaryen, or so the rebels believed. Her brother Brandon rode to King's Landing demanding justice, only to be strangled by Aerys's cruelty. Their father Rickard burned alive, screaming for his son. The rebellion that followed was not just a war, but a cry for retribution. Robert Baratheon, Ned Stark, Jon Arryn. They raised their banners to avenge the Starks, to topple a mad king, to right a wrong. They won. Aerys died. Rhaegar fell. The Targaryens fled. But vengeance is a fire that does not stop burning. The rebellion left scars that never healed. Robert's hatred for Targaryens poisoned his reign, his marriage, his soul. Ned's secrets tore his family apart. The realm, far from healed, simmered with new grudges, new wars. The rebellion teaches us that vengeance, even when victorious, is a wound that festers, birthing new cycles of blood. King's Landing is the altar where these sacrifices were made. Its streets are stained with the blood of those who sought to settle scores. The Red Keep, with its iron gates and hidden passages, is a labyrinth of grudges, each one a thread in the tapestry of ruin. The Iron Throne forged in dragonfire is not just a seat of power, but a monument to vengeance. Every king who sat upon it bore the weight of old wrongs, and every king added new ones. Aegon the Conqueror forged it, but it was vengeance against rivals, against rebels, against fate itself that kept it sharp. Why do we hunger for vengeance? It is not just anger, not just pain. It is the need to reclaim what was taken, to prove that the world cannot break us without consequence. Arya sought to reclaim her family's honor. Jaime sought to protect his love. Olenna sought to secure her legacy. The rebels sought to right a kingdom's wrongs. Yet each found only shadows. Vengeance promises justice, but delivers chaos. It is a fire that warms for a moment, then consumes all you hold dear. This is the third truth of Westeros. Vengeance is a blade with no hilt. To wield it is to bleed. The Game of Thrones is not won by those who settle scores, but by those who survive them. Yet survival is no victory. It is merely the chance to face the next grudge, the next wound, the next turn of the wheel. King's Landing stands battered, but unbowed, a city of vendettas that will never end. And the Iron Throne waits its edges gleaming for the next soul to try. Sacrifice is the fourth truth of Westeros, a coin paid in blood and bone to the gods of power and survival. In the shadowed halls of King's Landing, where ambition and vengeance dance their deadly waltz, sacrifice is the silent partner, the price no one speaks of, but all must pay. It is not the grand gestures of heroes, not the songs sung by bards, but the quiet grinding surrender of what makes us human: love, hope, honor, even self. The Iron Throne, jagged and unyielding, demands more than loyalty or cunning. It demands pieces of your soul carved out with a blade you wield yourself. To sit upon it, to even dream of it, is to offer up what you hold dear, knowing it will never be enough. King's Landing is a city of altars, each one stained with the offerings of those who thought they could pay the price and walk away whole. To understand this truth, we must look to those who gave everything: Sansa Stark, Theon, Greyjoy, Melisandre of Ashai, and the ghost of Rhaegar Targaryen. For in their sacrifices, we see the cost of playing the Game of Thrones. Begin with Sansa Stark, the girl who became a queen. Not through fire or steel, but through the slow, searing sacrifice of her innocence. Sansa was a dreamer, once a child of Winterfell, who wove tales of knights and princes, believing the world was as beautiful as her songs. King's Landing shattered that dream. Joffrey's cruelty, Cersei's schemes, Littlefinger's manipulations each stripped away a piece of her leaving scars where hope once bloomed. Yet Sansa did not break. She learned, she endured. She sacrificed the girl she was to become, the woman who could survive. She gave up her trust, trading it for suspicion, her softness for steel. When she stood in the great hall of Winterfell, declaring herself queen in the north, it was not triumph that shone in her eyes, but resolve. Sansa sacrificed her heart to protect her people, her dreams to secure her home. She let Littlefinger die, not out of vengeance, but because she knew love, however twisted, could no longer blind her. Her crown was forged in loss, each gem a piece of herself left behind. Sansa teaches us that sacrifice is not a single act, but a lifetime of choices, each one carving you into something harder, colder, stronger. If Sansa's sacrifice was a slow forging, Theon Greyjoy's was a crucible of agony. Born a prince of the Iron Islands, raised a ward of Winterfell, Theon was a man caught between worlds belonging to neither. His ambition led him to betray the Starks, to seize Winterfell in a bid for glory. But ambition is a cruel master, and Theon paid dearly. Ramsay, Bolton, broke him, flayed him, stripped him of name, pride, and humanity, turning him into Reek, a creature of fear. Yet sacrifice is not always taken. It can be chosen. Theon's path back to himself was paved with pain, but also with courage. He gave up his safety to save Sansa, his life, to protect Bran in the Godswood. When he stood against the Night King's army, a lone figure with a spear, he knew he would die. He chose it anyway. Theon's sacrifice was not for redemption, though he found it. It was for the family he had lost the home. He had burned the man he might have been. His death was no song, no legend, but a quiet offering to a world that had taken everything. Theon teaches us that sacrifice is not always noble. It is raw, desperate, and sometimes the only way to reclaim what you are. Melisandre of Ashai. The Red Priestess sacrificed not for love or home, but for faith. She was a woman of fire, her life bound to the will of R'hllor, the Lord of Light. In King's Landing, she was a whisper, a shadow, but her influence burned across Westeros. Melisandre believed in a chosen one, a prince to save the world from darkness, and she poured her life into that belief. She gave Stannis Baratheon her visions, her magic, her body, urging him toward the Iron Throne. She burned men, women, even a child. Shireen, the girl who trusted her to fuel her God's will. Yet faith is a fickle flame. When Stannis fell, when her visions faltered, Melisandre did not crumble. She turned to Jon Snow, resurrecting him with her magic, sacrificing years of her life to pull him from death. In the end, when the long night was won, she walked into the snow, her purpose fulfilled, and let the cold take her. Melisandre's sacrifice was not for herself, but for a prophecy she could never fully grasp. Her life, her power, her certainty, all were offered to a God who never answered clearly. She teaches us that sacrifice for faith is a gamble, one where the stakes are your soul, and the outcome is never certain. The ghost of Rhaegar Targaryen haunts these tales, a man whose sacrifices shaped the realm long before the Game of Thrones began. Rhaegar. The Silver Prince was no mere warrior or dreamer. He was a scholar, a musician, a man who believed he could change the world. His love for Lyanna Stark, whether stolen or chosen, was a sacrifice of duty for passion. He left his wife Elia Martell and their children, sparking a rebellion that would burn the realm. Rhaegar's vision of a prophecy of a prince that was promised drove him to act, to fight, to die on the Trident, under Robert Baratheon's hammer. His sacrifice was not just his life, but the Targaryen dynasty, the stability of Westeros, the lives of thousands. Yet Rhaegar's choices bore fruit in ways he could not foresee. His son, Jon Snow, became the shield against the dark. His love, Lyanna gave the world a savior, even as it tore it apart. Rhaegar's story is a paradox. Sacrifice can destroy, but it can also plant seeds for salvation, though the planter may never see the harvest. King's Landing is the stage where these sacrifices were offered. Its walls have witnessed the surrender of dreams, the breaking of hearts, the spilling of blood. The Red Keep with its crimson stones is a temple to loss. Each room, a shrine to what was given up. The Iron Throne forged in conquest is not just a symbol of power, but of sacrifice. Every ruler who claimed it paid a price, some with their lives, others with their humanity. Aegon the Conqueror built it, but it was the sacrifices of his descendants, his allies, his enemies that kept it standing. The throne does not reward, it demands. Why do we sacrifice? It is not just for survival, not just for love or faith. It is the belief that by giving up a part of ourselves, we can shape the world, protect what matters, defy the chaos that threatens to swallow us. Sansa sacrificed her innocence to save her people. Theon sacrificed his life to reclaim his name. Melisandre sacrificed her certainty to serve her God. Rhaegar sacrificed his dynasty for a vision. Yet sacrifice is a cruel bargain. It takes more than it gives, and the world it shapes is rarely the one you dreamed of. This is the fourth truth of Westeros. Sacrifice is a fire that warms only briefly before it consumes. The Game of Thrones is not won by those who give the most, but by those who can bear the loss. King's Landing endures its streets, paved with the remnants of broken dreams, its spires reaching for a sky that offers no mercy. The Iron Throne waits its blades thirsty for the next offering, the next soul to carve itself apart in the name of power. Legacy is the fifth truth of Westeros, a ghost that haunts the living, long after the swords are sheathed and the fires die. In the crumbling splendor of King's Landing, where the echoes of past kings linger in the stones, legacy is not a gift, but a burden, a chain forged from the deeds and sins of those who came before. It is the hope of being remembered, the fear of being forgotten, the illusion that your name can outlast the grave. Yet legacy is a fickle thing, shaped not by the hands that craft it, but by the tongues that speak it. The Iron Throne with its twisted blades is no mere seat. It is a ledger recording the names of those who sought to etch their mark on eternity, only to find their stories warped by time. King's Landing is a city of monuments, each one a lie, each one a truth, built on the dreams of those who thought they could control what history would say. To understand this truth, we must trace the legacies of Tywin Lannister, Bran Stark Varys, and the enduring myth of Aegon the Conqueror. For in their stories we see the fragile fatal dance of those who seek to live forever. Begin with Tywin Lannister, the Lion of Casterly Rock, a man who built a legacy with the precision of a maester and the ruthlessness of a warlord. Tywin did not crave the Iron Throne for himself. He was no king, nor wished to be. His ambition was for his house, for the name Lannister to stand as a pillar of power, unyielding through the ages. Every move he made, every marriage arranged, every battle fought, every enemy crushed, was a brick in that edifice. He orchestrated the Red Wedding, drowning the Starks in blood, to secure his grandson's crown. He rebuilt King's Landing's coffers, turning chaos into order through sheer will. Even his children, Cersei, Jaime Tyrion, were pawns in his grand design, their lives shaped to serve the family's glory. Yet legacy is a house built on sand. Tywin's children defied him. Cersei with her reckless love, Jaime with his broken oaths, Tyrion with his rebellion. When Tyrion's crossbow bolt found Tywin's heart, it was not just a man who fell, but a dream. The Lannister name. Once a roar became a whisper, tarnished by infighting and defeat. Tywin's legacy was not one of triumph, but of irony. He sought to make his house eternal, but sowed the seeds of its ruin. He teaches us that legacy is not controlled. It is inherited, twisted, and often betrayed by those you leave behind. If Tywin's legacy was a fortress that crumbled, Bran Stark's was a tapestry woven from sacrifice and vision. The broken boy, the three-eyed raven, was no king in the mold of warriors or conquerors. He was a cripple, a dreamer, a vessel for the memories of the world. Bran did not seek the Iron Throne, yet it came to him not through ambition, but through the weight of what he had become. His legacy was not one of conquest, but of understanding. A king who saw all, knew all, and bore the burden of history itself. He sacrificed his humanity to become something more, his body confined to a chair, his mind stretched across time. When he was crowned in the ruins of King's Landing, it was not a victory, but a necessity. Bran's rule was not about glory, but about endurance, about holding a fractured realm together with the threads of memory. Yet legacy is a cold comfort. Bran's name would be remembered, but as what? A king, a god, a shadow. His story is a paradox, to leave a legacy. He gave up the boy. He was becoming a stranger to those who loved him. Bran teaches us that legacy is not about being loved or feared, but about being necessary, even if it means losing yourself. Varys the Spider spun a legacy not for himself, but for an idea. He was no lord, no knight, no man of blood or birth. Born a slave, castrated, sold, he rose through cunning to become the master of whispers, a shadow who shaped the fate of kings. Varys did not seek fame or power for its own sake. His dream was a realm at peace, a world where the small folk did not bleed for the games of the great. He served kings, betrayed kings, all in pursuit of a better ruler. First Robert, then Viserys, then Daenerys, and finally Jon. Every secret he traded, every life he took was a step toward that vision, yet legacy is a cruel judge. When Varys saw Daenerys' fire turn to madness, he acted whispering of Jon's claim, betting his life on a truth the world was not ready to hear. Daenerys' dragons burned him for it, his body reduced to ash before the throne he never sought. Varys' legacy is not in songs or statues, but in the ripples of his choices, the survival of a realm that never knew his name. He teaches us that legacy can be selfless, but selfless does not mean safe. To build for others is to risk everything, and the world may never thank you. The myth of Aegon the Conqueror looms over all the first and greatest legacy of Westeros. Aegon, with his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys, forged the Seven Kingdoms, with dragonfire uniting a fractured land under one crown. The Iron Throne was his creation, a symbol of his will, forged from the swords of his enemies. His name is etched in every stone of King's Landing, his blood in every king who followed. Yet Aegon's legacy is not what he intended. He dreamed of unity, but his descendants brought division. He built a throne, but it became a curse. The Targaryen dynasty, once a flame, flickered and died, leaving only ashes and exiles. Aegon's conquest was a triumph, but triumphs fade. His legacy is a warning. Even the greatest deeds are reshaped by those who inherit them, bent by time, warped by ambition. Aegon teaches us that legacy is not a monument, but a story, and stories change with every telling. King's Landing is the canvas where these legacies were painted. Its streets are lined with the echoes of names. Lannister, Stark, Targaryen, each one a mark on the scroll of time. The Red Keep, with its towering walls, is a mausoleum of dreams. Each brick, a testament to those who thought they could outlast death. The Iron Throne, born of Aegon's fire, is not just a seat, but a mirror reflecting the truth of those who seek it. Legacy is a lie. You tell yourself, a hope that your name will mean what you wish. It never does. The throne endures, but the names it bears fade, twisted by the hands of those who come after. Why do we chase legacy? It is not just pride, not just fear of oblivion. It is the need to matter, to believe that our pain, our sacrifices, our lives will echo beyond the grave. Tywin sought a house that would stand forever. Bran sought a world that would endure. Varys sought a realm that would thrive. Aegon sought a kingdom that would unite. Yet legacy is a shadow, always shifting, never yours to hold. It is not what you leave, but what others take, and they take only what serves them. This is the fifth truth of Westeros' legacy, is a flame that burns long after you are gone, but it warms others, not you. The Game of Thrones is not won by those who write their names in stone, but by those who accept their names will fade. King's Landing stands its spires scarred by the dreams of the dead, its streets whispering of those who thought they could outrun time. The Iron Throne waits, its edges sharp, for the next name to claim the next story, to tell the next lie to believe. Revelation is the sixth and final truth of Westeros, a cold light that strips away the lies we tell ourselves. In the ruins of King's Landing, where the bones of the fallen mingle with the ash of dreams, revelation is not salvation, it is judgment. It is the moment when the veil of ambition, vengeance, sacrifice, and legacy falls, and we see the world as it is, a mirror of our own making, reflecting not gods or heroes, but the flawed, fragile creatures who dare to play the game of thrones. The Iron Throne, scarred and silent, is no prize, no destiny. It is a truth laid bare, a reminder that power is an illusion, and the only certainty is the cost. King's Landing, battered, yet enduring, is a city of revelations, its streets whispering the secrets of those who thought they could outwit fate. To understand this truth, we must face the final stories, those of Samwell Tarly Brienne of Tarth, the small folk who bore the weight of kings, and the eternal shadow of the long night. For in their endings, we find not resolution, but the stark, unyielding reality of what it means to be human. Begin with Samwell Tarly, the scholar of the Night's Watch, a man who carried no sword but wielded knowledge sharper than steel. Sam was no warrior, no lord, no claimant to the throne. He was a coward, or so he thought, until the world forced him to be more. In the frozen north he faced whites and white walkers, not for glory, but for survival. In the citadel, he stole books and secrets not for power, but for truth. Sam's journey was not one of conquest, but of discovery. He uncovered the lineage of Jon Snow, the truth that reshaped the realm, a Targaryen heir born of love and rebellion. Yet revelation is a heavy burden. When Sam spoke that truth, he did not mend the world, he broke it. Daenerys' claim faltered. Her fire turned to madness, and King's Landing burned. Sam's knowledge did not save the realm. It ignited its fall. Yet in the end, as Grand Maester, he wrote the chronicles, shaping the story of a fractured age. His revelation was not that truth heals, but that it cuts. Sam teaches us that to know is to wound, and the wounds of truth bleed long after the blade is gone. Brienne of Tarth, the knight who was no knight, carried a different revelation, that honor is not a shield, but a mirror. Born to a world that mocked her strength, her size, her dreams, Brienne forged herself into a warrior of unshakable resolve. She swore oaths to Catelyn Stark, to Sansa, to Jaime Lannister, and kept them, though the world laughed. In King's Landing, she stood as a paradox, a woman knighted by a kingslayer, a protector in a city of predators. Her love for Jaime, unspoken yet unyielding, was her truth, a light that guided her through darkness. Yet when Jaime returned to Cersei, when he died in the Red Keep's collapse, Brienne faced her revelation. Honor does not save those you love. She wrote Jaime's story in the White Book, giving him the legacy he never sought. But it was not for him, it was for her. Brienne's truth was that honor is not a reward, but a choice, one that leaves you standing alone, your heart scarred but unbroken. She teaches us that revelation is not in victory, but in acceptance of pain, of loss, of the world's indifference. The small folk of King's Landing, nameless and numberless, bear a revelation no lord or king can claim, that power is a lie, told by the few, paid for by the many. They toiled in the shadow of the Red Keep, their lives ground to dust by the ambitions of those above. They cheered for Robert, for Joffrey, for Cersei, for Daenerys, not out of love, but out of fear, hunger, hope. They built the city, fed the armies, buried the dead. Yet when the dragons came, when wildfire and fire rained from the sky, it was their homes that burned their children, who screamed their blood that ran in the streets. The small folks' revelation is the oldest truth of Westeros. The Game of Thrones is not theirs yet. They pay its price. Their lives, their deaths are the foundation of every crown, every legacy, every war. They teach us that revelation is not in the throne, but in the dirt beneath it. The truth that power is built on the suffering of those who will never hold it. The long night. The shadow that fell over Westeros is the final revelation. A truth that transcends kings and crowns. It was not a war for glory, but for existence, a battle against death itself. The Night King, with his army of whites, was no schemer, no dreamer. He was a force, a mirror held up to humanity's fragility. When the living stood at Winterfell, when Jon, Daenerys, Arya, and countless others faced the dark, they saw the truth. All their struggles, their betrayals, their thrones meant nothing against the cold. Arya's dagger striking the Night King ended the threat, but not the lesson. The long night revealed that humanity's greatest enemy is not the dark beyond, but the dark within. The wars that followed the burning of King's Landing, the fall of Daenerys, they were not the work of monsters, but of men and women driven by the same flaws that have always plagued them. The long night teaches us that revelation is not in survival, but in seeing ourselves clearly and choosing to fight anyway. King's Landing, scarred and silent, is the crucible of these revelations. Its walls, cracked by fire and blood, hold the secrets of 1,000 truths. The Red Keep, half ruined, is a tomb for illusions, each stone a testament to those who thought they could master fate. The Iron Throne, melted by dragonfire, is no longer a seat, but a memory, a symbol of what was and what will never be again. It was never the prize, never the answer. It was a question. What are you willing to pay? The answer, written in the ashes of the city, is everything. Why do we seek revelation? It is not for peace, not for victory. It is the need to understand, to strip away the lies we tell ourselves about loyalty, ambition, vengeance, sacrifice, legacy, and see the world as it is. Sam sought truth to save the realm and found it broke it. Brienne sought honor to protect those she loved and found it left her alone. The small folk sought survival and found their lives were coin for others' games. The long night sought to end humanity and found humanity's flaws were its own undoing. Revelation is not kind. It is a blade cold and sharp that cuts through the heart of who we are. This is the sixth truth of Westeros. Revelation is a fire that burns away all but the bones of truth. The Game of Thrones is not won, not lost, but played endlessly, hopelessly, because we cannot stop. King's Landing stands a ruin that breathes its streets, whispering of those who came before its sky, heavy with the weight of those yet to come. The Iron Throne is gone, but its shadow remains a challenge to the next dreamer, the next fool, the next soul to reach for power and find only ash. We are the architects of our own ruin, building crowns from blood and bone, knowing they will crumble, yet unable to turn away. The wheel is broken, but we forge it anew, because that is what we are, creatures of fire and flaw, chasing truths we cannot bear in a world that will not forgive.